In this vlog, we would like to deal with the implementation of Flutter hooks. Yes, in our previous tutorial, we have gone through the Flutter hooks introduction. There we have used Flutter hooks for the implementation of the counter example. So we have considered a counter example so that it will be easier for everyone to understand, because the counter logic is being known by everyone who gets started with the Flutter application. Why? Because it's been provided as a basic application when you create any project. So we have made use of a hooks concept in the counter example. So instead of a stateful widget, we have used hook widget over there. So I think you are familiar with that particular tutorial, and if you are watching this tutorial for the first time, I would suggest you to please watch that particular tutorial so as to get a basic knowledge, because we are just continuing through that particular tutorial in this vlog. In our previous tutorial, we have just made a button click to increment the counter, but now we try to auto increment the counter, and now let's try to see how we are making use of it. So in our previous tutorial, as we were dealing with the hook widget, we have made use of useState here instead of setState. So whenever we are trying to make use of a stateful widget, where we make use of the setState to update the state of our application, like whenever you increment the number, then we will try to update our text widget with the help of the setState. So for this we have made use of useState. So in this particular tutorial also we are making use of the useState, and also additionally we are making use of useEffect here. So how we are making use of useEffect here is like, instead of init and dispose, we are making use of useEffect here. So init and dispose are the part of lifecycle for a widget, and also setState. So we are avoiding all these three things like setState, init and dispose, and just we are making use of useState and useEffect. And now we are trying to auto increment the number, and how we did this and what is the example we are making use of it. So now let's get started to see further. So now let's get started with the example here. So first of all, let us try to import the material.dart here, and also we have tried to add the dependency here, Flutter hooks, to our pubspec.yaml file. So please make sure you add this particular dependency before starting this particular tutorial. So now after importing the material.dart file, let's start with void main here and try to specify run app, and inside which let us specify our default my app here. So now let us specify stateless widget and add my app as a name for it, and instead of container let us return a material app, and inside which specify scaffold here and app bar. So just we are trying to specify a title for the app bar here with the help of a text widget. So just I'm specifying it like hooks, and now comes to the body section here, and just I'm trying to create a class called home, and now let's try to create a stateful widget with the name home here. So now till now we are very clear. So these are all the basic things which we have covered from a lot of tutorials on this channel. So now instead of returning a container, I would like to return a text widget over here, and also wrap it with center here so that our text appears at the center of the screen. And here comes our example. As we have discussed earlier, like we are trying to auto increment the number, so for which I'm going to consider a timer here. So inside the state here, and let us consider here we are having a home class which is a stateful widget, and if you observe here we have got two classes here. So the first class is a stateful widget, and the second class is a state which is been created. So we are not going to update this particular class here every time, we are going to update this particular state class here. So now I'm going to add a late initialization timer here, so that we are going to initialize this timer in init block. So that is initState here, which is a lifecycle component, and by default you need to import this particular timer here. It is not present in our material.dart import, so you need to add dart asynchronous here to get started with the timer here. And also we require a variable to hold the integer value here. So for that I'm just going to specify count, or let's specify count, not a counter. So for which I'm going to specify an integer variable like count here, and by default it is 0. So initial value I have specified as 0, and now I would like to provide this particular variable in our text widget, and we cannot directly populate the integer variable here, so I'm just trying to enclose it with a string here and try to add a dollar symbol before it. Okay, so now we are not making use of the hooks concept here. We are trying to make use of the basic stateful widget and trying to implement the timer here. And now let us provide the initState here, and here we will try to initiate our timer here, timer dot periodic, and here let us specify the duration, so in terms of seconds. So these are all the options you are having, like days, hours, microseconds, milliseconds, minutes. So for the example I'm just specifying seconds here. You may try any one of it. So 1 second time interval I'm specifying, and this is our callback function here. So every time after 1 second we are getting this particular callback here, and we can make use of it to do any functionality here. So I think till now it's very clear for you. We are just trying to make use of a timer here. We have specified a global variable here, and we have initialized it in initState here. And what this particular timer will do is, like here you can see this particular block of code. So this particular block of code in blue color here, you can see like between these brackets will be executed for every 1 second, and for every 1 second we will need to update the state here as well. So let us make use of the count variable which we have specified, and here make use of the timer. Here we are getting the timer value, right? And here you can specify your own value. Here I can just specify ABC. So that is the value we are fetching from this particular callback, and you can just make use of ABC here and dot tick here. So here you are getting the value. So now we are trying to update the count variable here for every second, and now we have initialized the timer in the initState. And also there is one more important step you need to make use here, so that is dispose. You need to also dispose the timer every time you create one. So here let's try to cancel this timer here. So after the use you need to properly dispose the timer here. So what's the problem with this particular implementation is, like now we have specified the timer in our main.dart file here, and when we move to the second.dart file here, so this is a basic code for a class second here, and whenever you want to have a timer implementation in this particular class, you need to specify all these things like init and dispose even for this particular second.dart file here. So unnecessary we need to code multiple times the same code here, so we can avoid all this boilerplate code when we make use of the Flutter hooks. So before going any further, let's try to run this particular code and see the output once. So now here we are able to see our number is being incremented in terms of seconds, right? So just I'm saying it's like incrementing number, but we have considered timer here. It's not properly visible. You can just try to specify the style, and inside which let us specify text style and the font size to be 50. And now let's try to check it. So yes, it looks much better now. So what are all the things we have done is, like we have specified a timer, and in initState we have initialized it, and in dispose we have properly cancelled our timer here. So we have make use of a stateful widget here. This is how we can implement a timer and so as to increase the count of a variable here. So now let's try to solve the same particular problem here with the help of a hook widget here. We can just comment down these two particular classes here for now, or else just try to specify one more class like hook and try to create that particular class. So first of all, I'm trying to create a stateless widget for which I will be naming hook here and hook widget. So here you can see we are extending a hook widget which will add this particular import here. So in the initial part of the tutorial I have specified, right, we need to add this particular dependency here. When you add this particular dependency, you can import this package Flutter hooks and make use of the hooks in your project. So now when we consider to our home stateful widget here, in this particular class we have not added anything. So we are just trying to create a state, and inside the state we have added our timer here and a variable. And what we have done here, one more time I'm just trying to explain you, because by the end of this particular tutorial you will get a very good clarity here. So we are just trying to increment, so we are trying to make an action for every second here. So after making this particular action, after performing this particular action here, we are trying to store the data inside a variable here. So till now it's good, but how we can update it onto our screen here? So for which we are making use of a setState here. So with the help of a setState we are trying to update it onto our screen here. We need to perform the same action with the help of a hook widget over here, and for which we are not using setState here. So now let us try to specify the variable here. So the count variable here in our home state we have specified, right, count variable. So in the similar way we will try to specify the count variable in our hook widget even, but here we don't have setState. That is, we are not making use of a setState here. We don't have two classes creating a state in one class and reloading the another class with the help of a state. So we are just only having a hook widget. So how we are handling this particular concept here, useState. So if you have gone through our previous tutorial you might have already known this particular thing. So let us specify a final count, and here we are making use of useState here with an initial data to be 0 here. So this is our initial data 0, which we have specified even in our earlier example. And now let's make use of the useEffect here. So with the help of the useEffect we are trying to perform this particular action, that is starting the timer and continuously running this particular timer and updating the value to our count variable here. So in this useEffect here we are having an option of specifying some keys here in this particular constructor. So what is the use of this particular keys here is, like, for example, whenever you are trying to make use of a network call with the help of useEffect, then let us consider a scenario where you want to make an API call for every 1 hour. You just need to specify this particular key over here, and once the keys inside the constructor are updated, then our useEffect will also gets reloaded every time the key is been updated. But for now we don't want to run the useEffect multiple times. We just only want to run the useEffect when we try to run this particular class. That's all. We don't want to run it multiple times here. And in our coming tutorials we even try to see how to run the useEffect block multiple times by specifying some keys. And inside the useEffect let us try to add our timer here. So previously we have specified timer variable to be global. Why? Because we need to also cancel that particular timer in our dispose block. So here let us make use of duration and specify the time in terms of seconds here. And similarly we got a callback here, and now within this particular callback we would like to set our data here to our count variable equal to timer dot tick. So there is a particular error here. We cannot directly assign the value to our count variable because this is of a type value notifier here. So what does value notifier is like? Whenever there is any update to this particular value here, it will notify and also try to update onto the screen here. So you need to specify dot value here, and here let's try to return a text widget, and within the text widget we would like to specify this particular count variable, count dot value here, and also we would like to specify some font size, to be 50 again. So this is not font style, font size to be 50. We have skipped the init state here, but now how we can skip the dispose block here? Just try to return timer dot cancel. So this will do the same work as our dispose do. It will just cancel the timer once we make use of this particular timer and we don't require it anymore. So it's so simple, right? This particular block of code which will avoid init state and also dispose state. And also you can see here we just only got one particular class here and not multiple classes anymore. So even when you compare the lines of code here, this looks a bit smaller, right? When we compare this particular code to our stateful widget which we have seen earlier. This particular implementation of Flutter hooks will not only reduce the boilerplate code but also makes the work of a programmer much easier and efficient. So now let's try to run this particular code and see the output once. So it's the same again. We have got the same output again, just we need to center this one so that it looks same as our earlier example. This is how we can implement the Flutter hooks, and in this particular tutorial we have seen the two concepts like useState and useEffect. So how to implement them? So this particular useEffect will be very much helpful for you, and if you are from React background, then you might have already noticed this particular implementation in React Native applications. In our coming tutorials, we would like to see more on this particular topic. Do let us know in the comment section below, and try to watch our previous tutorials to get to know more about useState implementation, because I have not covered a lot in this particular tutorial because we have discussed it earlier. So yes, this is it for this tutorial, and the code for this tutorial is available in the description section below. And if you like this tutorial, do like, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting content on Flutter.